All right. I think we are actually close to being on time today. We are going to make sure that we end on time no matter how we progress through the morning. So just a quick extension of the welcome for you all. You all have shirts and have heard our theme for the year is Cultivating Butterflies. And I want to walk through that process just a little bit before we launch into featuring some of our students. So the whole idea behind the theme of Cultivating Butterflies, and I've shared with you at some of your retreats, is that there is this beautiful potential in every single human. The colleagues that are sitting here around you and the little and big kids who are walking through the door on Tuesday morning. And while we always want to work to increase our academic performance, that's a huge thing that highly helps opportunities to be successful in the future. It's not the only reason that we exist and the only thing that we do. In fact, I would say it's really only about 50% of what we do. I've shared with you a quote over the years a couple of times from Ken Robinson that says the aim of education is to help learners understand the world around them and the talents within them. And that's really what we want to focus on is how can we be sure that every kid that sits in front of us sees us see in them the things that they're great at, the unique talents that they have, the beauty that they can add to the world. I've made some of you at your retreats go through the process of envisioning the caterpillar process, walking across the sidewalk. Raise your hand if I made you do that, like close your eyes and picture the caterpillar. Oh, not as many as I thought. Okay, I won't make you repeat it right now, but I think at some point you can. So just think for a moment though, if you remove all background knowledge, who would ever envision that a fuzzy little worm crawling across the ground would one day have wings and soar through the sky? And one of my favorite quotes about the idea of becoming a butterfly is, how does one become a butterfly? You have to want to learn to fly so much that you're willing to give up being a caterpillar. And to me that holds so much. The idea of being a caterpillar is what we're comfortable with. It's all we know. We may not even envision for ourselves that we can do anything other than crawl on the ground. The process of going from caterpillar to butterfly is one of struggle. Like, who willingly wants to get into a cocoon and not see light for however long that process takes? Like, it doesn't just happen, and no one can do that for you. There has to be this level of agency and ownership to go through that process. As mothers, we can't crawl in the cocoon for our kids and then they walk out with the wings, right? Like, they have to go through that process individually. And so there's a lot that we're going to talk about around this theme throughout the year. The whole idea of seeing the potential within, the whole idea of creating the conditions so that kids can see that they have that beauty within them and they want to develop those wings and fly. The idea of going through productive struggle and having a bit of agency in that, having to own that process, and then soaring through the sky. And the last part of this that's just fascinating for me is honestly the big picture concept of the butterfly effect. So the idea is that in complex systems, a simple flap of a butterfly's wings can cause a tsunami across the world. And think of the impact that we all have on everyone around us, both our colleagues, our district, our community, our kids, and think of the impact our kids can have if cultivated in the right way. And so that's really where I want our hearts to be as we go into this year. And what we're going to do in terms of featuring our convocation keynote speaker is seeing some of those who have developed their wings within our system. So we're going to bring up Brahma Video Productions. If you want to take your seats on the stage. The way we came about featuring these kiddos, so I will say last spring, super busy schedule. Percy reached out a couple of times and was like, hey, will you be on our podcast? And I didn't have a chance to reply and get it scheduled. And I asked Heather, like, hey, can you help me get this on my calendar? I didn't know exactly what I was walking into on the end of a day of a busy week. And when I got there, the moment completely transformed. I'm so glad that moment existed. So I walked in and I'm greeted and issued up to their studio. And as I get there, there's this beautiful display, like a Higginbotham display of trays and snacks and branded water bottles. And they're like, would you like a beverage or a snack before we get started? And just this level of professionalism happened from the moment I interacted with this group of students. They walked me over to the set of the studio. They explained how everything was going to work. We originally thought we were going to have 3 people. We went down to 2, so they adjusted the set to keep it symmetrical, adjusted the microphones, walked me through. These are the questions we're anticipating asking you. Do you want to preview them and make sure if there's anything you don't want to touch upon, we can take that off and make those adjustments. Got Mr. Dristis and I all set on the stage, walked through, this is the video process, this is where you look. If you have to make a mistake, don't worry about it. This is what we'll do in editing. If you want to turn, if you don't want to look this way the whole time, look this way, but don't stare into the camera this way. Like, the level of professionalism, I was in awe. And then the conversation started. And Aaron isn't able to join us this morning, but he's a core member of the Brahma Video Productions team. And while he was asking us questions, it was his dialogue that I walked away like literally in tears. He described how he went from being a student who didn't necessarily love school, may have, been sick a couple of times or left early a lot. And when he got engaged with Brahma Video Productions, he's now the kid who he's like, I try harder in all of my classes because I see how what I'm learning there helps me here. I'm calling my mom and saying, hey, I won't be home till 6 o'clock today because I'm running wires and we have a podcast scheduled. He described at the end how his grandmother used to give him tips on going back to her artwork and always adding in that little detail. And when you walk away at the end of it, you can be proud of it. He started that whole process off by saying, when he was talking about being disengaged prior to finding something that he loves and enjoys, saying, well, I was a dyslexic kid in the Texas public school system. Of course I didn't like being at school. And he found something that he was passionate about, and it completely changed his approach and desire and want to learn in multiple arenas, not just Brahma Video Productions. So hearing him was one of those transformational moments for me, where I went, this makes my heart feel fulfilled. This is what we're trying to accomplish. And Percy and Colson shared along the way every conversation I've had with them when I was like, hey, do y'all want to be our keynotes? I wish I could have recorded every conversation we've had up to this moment, because there have been so many little golden nuggets that I hope come through our conversation today. I told them that's their one chart, just to make sure all the amazing insights that they've shared with me get shared with you, but they are our featured keynote for today's convocation because they are butterflies flying within our system right now. So with that, Ms. Jones, I'm going to let you take over and drive the presentation, and I'm going to go MC our Q&A with our guests. If you'll give them a round of applause. All right, so Mr. G, do you want to kick it off with introductions, introducing yourself and letting them introduce themselves as members of our BVP team?
Okay. Everybody hear me? Okay. My name is Greg Stissel. I run AustinCountyNewsOnline.com. It's a news website for our area. I have to laugh, it's a free news website, so you can imagine it makes a lot of money. My goal was to try to get it to where we can basically bring more video and things like that. Right now, the Austin County area only has print media. And so the goal was to bring digital media to the area so we can have, I film a lot of the city councils, EDCs, things like that. And most people, if they can't make it, life is so busy, at least they have the ability to take part in governmental functions and things like that through the news website. And we put articles and things like that. I'm not a teacher. I was a nurse for 24 years. And I stopped about 10 years ago to start helping my father with our family farm. And then I started here about a year ago. There was an ad for a video teacher, and I thought, well, I can do that if they're willing to have me. And so I went ahead and went in and met with the senior staff, and I had to laugh. We went through and we were discussing. They showed me the learning center, and I left, and they said, "Can you swing by the administration office?" And I said, "Sure." And until they slid a W-2 by me, I didn't even know I was hired. So I was like, "Oh, okay, we're doing this." So anyway, it floundered a little bit at the beginning. I wasn't quite sure how I wanted to take the program. But then we ended up starting, I thought we need something to kind of center around. And so that's when I got the idea of us trying to create a studio at the Learning Center. And it's on the second floor. Y'all are more than welcome to come take a tour through. The guys will be more than glad to show you. But we do green screen, and then we do interviews and podcasts and things like that. So that's one of the stuff. We try real hard to be professional and basically just put on a good product. So.
All right, so gentlemen, if you will introduce yourself, tell us your name, grade level, anything else you want to share as an introduction, and then we'll get into our questions.
My name is Percival Hughes. I am the senior this year, and I'm the production designer and the scheduling around BVP. So I work with Dr. Painage, Mr. Dristis, Mr. Hallman, and Miss Shauna at the Learning Center, and I get everything scheduled around. Busy schedule, and these guys are hectic whenever I tell them last minute, oh, we have a podcast today at 5, or we have a podcast at 4. And you're like, since when do we have a podcast? Oh, since today.
So those of you who have seen my Google Calendar, Percy's is worse than mine.
Yeah.
My name is Colson Post. I'm an upcoming senior, and I am the technical director for BVP. So basically, I handle all the mics, the recording software, all the cameras, basically everything that goes up on the screen. I'm just a camera guy. I don't really ever speak, so I am a little nervous, but but I'm basically just a camera guy. That's the really only thing I handle. But like you said, it gets a bit stressful when I'm getting told I have to prep for a podcast last minute.
All right. So I think you've covered a little bit about this, but if there's anything else that you want to share with your background, like what were your interests, what were you doing in school prior to connecting with BVP, how did you get into the audiovisual class, and then anything else that you want to share about not just your roles, but I know we're missing Aaron, but basically any of the student roles for how the whole production works.
So like at the beginning, we started off with a school project where we had to create like a video, like an ad basically, and that did not move anywhere. So then Mr. G got the idea of starting a studio, and I was thinking, I was like, okay, looking at all these other schools who have podcasts and news, and I was like, this could be a major thing here for Bellville ISD. So I talked to Colson and them, and we were like, let's just start a podcast, and let's see how it works. And then from there, we moved on to doing news for Bellville ISD, and we do announcements every Friday. And once we had the podcast, our first one, which was Mr. Jennings and Miss Chris, it just moved on from there and went completely like skyrocketed. And everybody loves it, and hopefully we get a lot of y'all faces in our podcast this year. We want to see most of y'all, okay?
I like how you put that condition on there. Most of them.
Yeah. Because you can ask Miss Chris and Mr. Jennings. They were like nervous about it, and then they loved it totally.
Well, I mean, before BVP, I didn't really have anything I really did in school. I was kind of just floating through, just did my classes. I had a couple AP classes, but that was about the most I did. Didn't really have any extracurriculars. Mainly because I had to help my family out, help out around the house, just do what I had to do. But like Percy said, really the project we had at the start of the school wasn't exactly fun. I wasn't exactly that fond of it, so the second he started talking about that studio, I joined in. I was like, might as well. And to be completely honest, I was just learning as I was going. I didn't really know what I was doing before, but I was really just digging down and getting it done, learning everything I could. And I mean, it just, like Percy said, from there it just kind of skyrocketed. We had more and more podcasts, more and more things we had to do. And in the end, I found I actually loved doing it. It wasn't just something I was doing because it looked good on a college resume, but something I loved doing. I loved going and learning more stuff, learning how to fix a problem, learning how I can talk to people better, learning how I can get the camera angles better, basically just learning everything in general, I found has actually been extremely fun. So in the end, I definitely think it's worth it. So it's fun.
Awesome. So they shared a little bit about what prompted them to get started, and I just want to make sure y'all caught that part, and I'm going to hand the microphone to Mr. G for part of this too. So BVP started as a class project that the kids were like, not super exciting. And they kind of pushed the idea, and Mr. G brought them the idea of the studio, and they took it to Mr. Dristis and kind of went off script from there, and allowing them to go off script. Mr. G's willingness to like, okay, we're going to see how this goes, even though it's not what was planned, is what's turned into this beautiful thing that they've created and have such a level of ownership and initiative. It's just really awesome. And I know there's been challenges along the way. Y'all talked about different programs and things that you've had. So we're going to just focus in on that for a little bit. And Mr. G, I'd love for you to join in the conversation too of just how did it all get started? How did it go from being an idea to actually existing? If you want to share some insights into how do you pick guests, what's that whole process of actually creating questions, not just filming, but editing, like going from this is an idea that we kind of have to what you've actually created, which we'll show next, and then any of the challenges along the way.
Well, one of the things I try to impress upon them is we want to be professional, because I don't know if y'all have noticed, if y'all have seen on there, the internet and video seem to be forever. And so if you do something that comes across as not professional or an oopsie, it can stick. And I told them the biggest thing is we have to make sure that we are projecting the image for Bellville that is professional. And so I try to force professional with them. I let them have fun. When we're working behind the scenes, we're cutting up and things like that, but I always tell them, whenever the podcast is on, it's showtime, it's game day. And they know, well, I have one good thing, I've got good kids, they listen. I haven't had to call anyone down, but my expectation is when it's time to work, we work. So that's one of the biggest things I try to do. Was there other question?
So if y'all want to chime in, no, you're good. If y'all want to chime in too, of just, you know, how did you actually get into existence, the logistics of figuring out equipment and then challenges? Y'all talked about using 9 different editing programs or something like that.
So like in the beginning, we started off with Adobe, and we totally hated it, and we never used it except for that project that started off, and we completely trashed that. So we were moving on to using, what was it? VMix? Premiere?
Yeah, for the editing.
Yeah, so we used Premiere first for editing. After that, we got to talk with Mr. Dristis, and we were like, we need something better so we could do more stuff and get more efficiency. So we moved on to VMix. So once we started moving on to VMix, we could do more like news, podcasts, and this year we're doing ads, and then recording more events here at the auditorium. But our like main struggles were scheduling with teachers or staff members, trying to see when they're available to come for a podcast. So I was up and down in the hallways talking to Mr. Dristis and teachers, seeing when they're available, if I could squeeze them in. And it's hard working in from, you have to be here at 3:35 or 4 o'clock, and we have to start like in 10 minutes and record our podcast and be out of here by 6 or 5. And sometimes we would say, okay, we'll be leaving at 5 o'clock, and we leave at 5:30, and y'all teachers know that schedule. Like, it's hectic, because y'all say, oh, I'm gonna leave here at 6 and be home. Y'all don't leave till 7 o'clock. And it was really hectic trying to schedule it with teachers, but at the beginning, like, you can ask Ms. Chris and Mr. Jennings again. They really were, like Mr. Jennings especially, was nervous about being on it, and then he got on it and he loved it, and we were like, okay, your video is going to be on YouTube now. Let everybody see how wonderful you are. And if you go to about 2:35 on the first video, you'll see Miss Chris. You'll love it.
So I will say Mr. Holloman and I had a contest for whose video would get watched more, and I believe mine won.
But going to like, especially the like technicalities and just things that could go wrong, definitely I've experienced more than enough of those this year. Technology just in general can fail at any moment. Literally, one of these lights could go off at any moment. There isn't really an explanation. Technology just in general is it's reliable and unreliable at the same time. Something could go wrong and you have no clue how to fix it. For example, on my second podcast, something went completely wrong. Cameras weren't connecting to the software, and we had to figure out a solution, which Mr. G kindly helped me with. And you just can't really do anything about it. So really, my main just faults I had this year, and the main things I learned from, was just technology not working, figuring out, I guess, protections against that, what I can do to have it not happen again. And really, that's all you can do. You can really just hope and pray that nothing goes wrong. And in the end of the day, you can have a couple things that can help, but nothing really is a 100%, I guess, protection against it all.
So I have one more question for y'all, and then I'm going to come back to you, Mr. G. We're kind of going a little off script, Ms. Jones, so I don't know if the slides are going to align. But y'all talked before about like having to change editing programs, not necessarily having the exact equipment that you wanted, but making it work for what you were trying to accomplish, things not working. What makes you work through that? Like, why not just throw your hands up and be like, oh, this didn't work and I'm going to walk away from it? What has made you persist through it?
Well, I mean, in the end of the day, you just, like you said, gotta get it done. And honestly, like I said, I enjoy doing it. And even when I'm in those stressful situations where things isn't working, I found I actually enjoy that situation worse. I work in a kitchen, my family's restaurant, and it's stressful 24/7, but it's the same way. It's like a good stress. Like when you're done and it's all said and done, you find you're actually like relieved, and it just feels amazing. And we have to get the video up, and that's why you have to get it done. It's something we have to do, and it's enjoyable.
Awesome. Percy?
For me, I would say like, so like, I really don't know.
You want to restate the
Yeah,
question?
restate the question.
Well, you do a lot of things, but you seem to have poured into this the most. So what makes this something that you want to pour into and work through the problems and deal with the stress of scheduling? And what is it about this that has you tapped in?
So a main thing with like scheduling and all that, like I have different other activities that I do here, especially like running the store and marketing for the learning center and all that. But one of the main things for me is that I'm very competitive. So if I started, I want to see it get done and achieve more than I've ever seen. Like when I look at something, I have a high statement of where I want to get. And if I don't reach above it, like I look really down on myself and I will do anything that's possible to get above it. Like sometimes I would go straight to Mr. Dristis and talk to him first and then run it by Mr. G and tell him, okay, we have a podcast this day. And Mr. G can tell you how hectic that was a little. But my main goal is I have to get above what I want to accomplish. If I can't get above that, it's below like myself.
That's a great segue, because I actually wanted to come back to Mr. G. In our conversations to prepare for this, one of the things that was insightful is he said, you know, I don't always know how to figure things out. I don't always know what program we need to use or equipment we need to use, but we're kind of all in it together and we're learning in it together. And y'all mentioned that sometimes you go to Mr. Dristis and come back to Mr. G, and you seem to have this flexibility of being willing to work through sometimes not having the control or the chaos or strict parameters, and that works for you. So talk to us a little bit about your role in helping cultivate everything that's happening with your BVP team.
I guess the biggest thing I always keep in mind is, first and foremost, it's the kids' group. It's their organization. I give them, the bumpers are pretty wide on there. I give them their goal, and basically it's like, how are we going to get from A to B? This is what we have to do, come up with. This is the podcast has to look like this, or our video needs to look like this. I try to stress quality, but then I let them figure it out. If they come to me, they're like, well, I don't know how to do this. I don't just immediately tell them, I'm like, well, did you look? Because one of the things I think is important for a kid or anyone is to realize the knowledge is out there. With the internet and everything, the ability to go out and find your own information is something that will stick with you forever. I want them to learn how to learn. Because the thing is, especially with technology, it evolves so quickly, there is no expert. It might have just been created and you have to use it, and so they have to be able to go out there and find this information. And so they'll come to me and I'll say, did you go to YouTube? Did you go check the chat boards? Did you go look at the message boards? And I want them to go solve their problems. But that's one of the biggest things. I run it relatively loose. They have their expectations, they know the goal, they know the date, when it has to be due. And I've had to step in with equipment, I've had to jump in and edit, I've had to, because at the same time they do have other obligations as well, like Colson said with his family's restaurant. And I told him, family comes first, work comes first. I get it. But I tend to just run it loose for them. And I'd laugh, they made the comment about the podcast. I don't step in a lot, but like in that particular one, they were having trouble with the cameras. And I let them work for a while, and then they turned on each other. And that's when I stepped in. Because like, whoa. And so I guess the whole thing is just knowing when to step in. But that was, because once they turned around and started on each other, well, now it's no longer productive.
All right, so we're gonna kind of change the tune a little bit. Ms. Jones, if you want to go to the next question, and then actually, if you'll click the link to the side, you don't have to escape out of it. But I'd love, Percy and Colson, tell us what you're most proud of that you've accomplished so far. And Ms. Jones is going to show you their website, their YouTube channel with all of their podcasts on it. So let's answer that question first, and then we'll go to the next one. What are you most proud of so far?
So most proud of, I would think, is getting this to the stage that we are now. Because at first we started with a small podcast, then we moved to a news, and now this year we're doing major events. We're working in the community to make ads for people. And that really is a big accomplishment for me, because now we're being more face of the community and the school, because BVP has moved on so much. Like this year we're planning on recording the football games, more major events like cheerleading, all that. And to me that's really, really, really like a big event, especially going to record the Austin County Fair this year, which I'm looking forward to that.
Probably the biggest thing I've found I'm proud of was basically just the channel itself. Us just getting all the videos done, us being able to talk to all of the people, and me just being able to I guess kind of just learn more all about it. And also just learning that I enjoy this more than anything else. And really it's just the channel itself that kind of just shows how everyone put in all the work, how everyone put in all their time, all their effort. And really just the channel was the biggest thing that's shown all of that. And like Percy said, how we've gotten on the stage, how we have plans to do a bunch more like that, ads, Austin County Fair, just a bunch of different stuff. It's really just the cultivation of every single person that has helped us out. And that's just what I'm proud of, just seeing all that come together.
It's amazing. Ms. Jones, if you want to scroll down a little bit and we can see some of the podcasts that y'all posted. I think you have 19 that y'all have completed for the year. Okay, so we talked about this question in advance. You've had time to think about it. Who was your favorite guest? I told them no pressure.
So,
honest answers.
My first podcast, that was my best one. My favorite scene, which I'm going to rat her out right now, was Miss Chris saying to her ex-boyfriend in high school. That was the best one, and that's why I told y'all, 285 first episode, go watch it.
My favorite is Miss Chris, Mr. Jennings, for that reason as well. Not gonna lie, I'm behind the scenes and I'm in a completely different room, but that entire podcast, I was laughing in the back of the room the entire time. It was probably the funniest one we had. It was the most enjoyable one we had. Just talk to them, and it was just extremely enjoyable the entire time.
So I do highly encourage y'all, if you, I think it's actually if you search BVP or Brahma Video Productions, you can find their YouTube channel, and they've got all their podcasts there if you have a chance to watch any of them. And so we have just, let's see, one more question before we turn it to the audience. So y'all start thinking. You're going to get to ask them any questions you want. This part makes me a little nervous. We'll come ask you any questions you want, and they're going to give any answer that they come up with. This is not pre-planned, so if you have a question, start thinking about it. We'll bring the mic around. Last question on the stage before we come to the audience. What's in the works for the upcoming school year that you're most excited about with BVP?
Well, we like, one of the things, everything we do is kind of serious. We wanted to bring a little bit of levity. We were kicking around trying to have like a game show where we would basically have students, teachers, and basically have some interaction, because the informational stuff is good, but I always laugh, people don't like their vegetables, they like the cake and ice cream, and that's what the funny stuff is. And so we're trying to do a little more levity with our stuff. And that's probably one of the biggest things that I would like to see happen this year.
So my big thing is getting the ads on, because
Money.
well, yes, money, and I'm big on business and marketing and ads and all that. So that's my main focus this year, is to get that running, so I can promote more about the Learning Center, the restaurant, and all that. Especially since I was managing most of that last year, and Dr. Stevens wants to do it again this year. So it's gonna be more hectic with my Leo club, Spanish club, UIL and all that, but I'll manage to get it running, hopefully.
Thing I'm looking forward to most is honestly the ads as well. And like Mr. G said, it's for the money. And honestly, the reason for that is because right now all the videos me and Percy have made have been recorded on not that good of cameras. Some really low quality cameras, some decent mics, but none of it has really been anything higher quality. And the reason why I want that money is because with that, like, we can buy higher quality cameras, higher quality mics, and in the end, it's a higher quality product. So in the end, I'm just looking forward to that so I can finally make something I can be a lot more proud of in the end, because when I post it, it's gonna look a lot better than it did before. And in the end, that's what it's for. I just wanna create a high quality product.
Awesome. All right, so audience, we're coming to you. Ms. Jones, if you want to grab that mic and take that side of the room. If anyone has questions that you want to ask them, it is free reign. The only thing I've told them they can't say in their responses is cuss words. All right. We've got one here and one there, so. Ms. Foster, come back to me next.
Shelley.
Hello, boys. First of all, I just want to say how incredibly proud I am of you guys. I have both of these boys my first year here at Bellville, and they are amazing. And I frequent Colson's restaurant whenever I'm in the mood for good pizza. Yeah. I did have a question for both of you. Since doing this, has it changed your idea of what you want to go do in college?
Very much so. Before like I said earlier at the start, I had no clue what I wanted to do. But now, video and videography is really starting to become some of like a passion I have. And I'm not exactly still 100% sure if it's what I'm gonna continue to go in, but now it's definitely a very big idea. It's something like I said, I enjoy doing, and in the end, I definitely think what I do in the future, it will have something with videography in it, something along those lines.
So for me, I was planning on going for architecture, but looking at how this has been going, I'm thinking about going into business marketing, especially business marketing is one of my major things that I do, like for the Learning Center and with ads going this year. So I'm hoping that that will give me a better portfolio where I can take to college and go for business marketing.
I have a question for you, gentlemen. With our turn on this side. Actually, this is just a check that question for you. I remember y'all coming through in the junior high, and that's kind of when you work with kids at a younger age, that's sort of the mental picture you have, and now we see you up on stage as seniors, and y'all are instrumental in building this amazing thing from the ground up. And you're going into what looks like it's going to be an outstanding senior year. Have y'all given any thought to what you're about preparing the next generation of Brahmas, the ones that will come up and take your place at some point, so that this can continue and live on past you once you become former students at Bellville? Have y'all given thought to that, or what kind of steps or ideas do you have to make sure that that continues?
So that is a hard problem that we have to deal with this year, is trying to find some people who are committed as us to doing this. And our main thing is that it's going to be difficult because, like me, I run around talking to teachers, talking to Mr. Dristis, getting in line with Dr. Payton, Mr. G, and there's so many people that I have to get in line with to prove things and get our scheduling set, which I think will be very difficult to find. I'll have to find at least 3 people to fill in that space, because there's nobody that I know of that can run around and find that teacher and get in line with all of them at the same time and put a podcast on that same day.
It's definitely one of my biggest worries as well, because mainly it's just, if anything, I feel bad for Percy because his job is definitely a lot harder. Like I said, I'm just a camera guy. I can teach anyone. The main thing is who I can trust to create a quality product, because anyone can get behind the camera and record, but it's the main worry is if it's going to be quality in the end. because that's the biggest thing we're striving for, is quality, like Mr. G said the entire time. So there have been a couple students that are coming in that I could teach, but the biggest thing is there's this one student, she's a junior, and I'm going to be teaching her. We're both close friends, but the problem is she's a junior. She's going to be leaving the school soon as well. So the biggest thing is I need to have someone that is in a younger grade, simply so I can know that for a while when I'm gone, it's going to keep on running. Same like Percy said, it's just going to keep on running when we're gone. Because there's a very easy chance when we're gone, it's done. So it's definitely a very big worry that we both have.
Good morning, gentlemen. First off, I'd like to compliment you on the phenomenal job that you did interviewing the Leo Club last year. I had several of my Leo Club officers take part in this, and we were all very nervous, including myself. You made us feel right at home. You gave us snacks. You sat us on the sofa. We small talked a little bit, and we did have some issues. And you were both so scrappy. You took care of the sound, the visual, the cameras weren't working that day. And we enjoyed watching you kind of troubleshoot and take care of the problems. And it was so professionally done. I was really in awe of you. So thank you for giving us that opportunity for the Leo Club. The questions that were asked of us allowed us to reflect upon our 4 years as an organization and really be proud of what we had done. And you gave us a showcase for that. So thank you, gentlemen. My question for you, I am looking forward to having you in government class this year, seniors. If you could interview anyone and do a podcast, who would it be? Not so much Bellville ISD staff, anyone in the world.
That's an extremely hard question. That's a really good one, but it's very hard. Honestly, just off the top of my head I'm just thinking like big figures in the world that have really changed the world. Like for example, it's a pretty basic answer, but George Washington would be pretty cool, in my opinion. But really just any one of the big figures in the world that really changed the world, I would love to have just an interview with, just because I'd love to know kind of how their thought process was and what they were doing, kind of how they went along with like doing what they did. So really just any big figure in the world. Doesn't have to be an exact one. Probably George Washington, He's
If I would have to choose, I would say Bill Gates, because I'm huge on technology, and especially with like running our BDP and all that, I would want to see and ask him how he managed to get all this started up, even though he had no idea how his business would run up and how it would lead in the future. That's what we're hoping for here, looking at how we will run in the future. Hopefully it'll be great this year.
All right, so I think we're going to end on that question. I don't know how you top that one, but if you do have any lingering things you're wondering, they will be here as soon as we wrap up and we have a little bit of time, just a quick amount of time in transition. So with that, let's give them a round of applause for being here.
I do want to say one thing to the teachers out there. We are open to suggestions. If y'all have something you'd like to see, have us cover, someone to interview, reach out and let us know. We're always sitting there in our planning meetings trying to figure out what are we going to cover. And right now we're just starting, but eventually you can run with a well, run to the bottom of the well. So just reach out, shoot me an email, or let anyone know. But just if y'all have any ideas, let us know.
Quick thing. On the 20th, we're planning on having our first podcast, so I'm going to be picking 2 of y'all.
It's already on the calendar. That's awesome. They really have been incredible, and I do hope if you have any interest or ability to be part of what they're producing, it's a crazy, amazing experience to actually get to see the students' ownership and initiative and professionalism. It's just super awesome. So as we get ready to launch, I'm going to give you a high-level overview for the year, and then Ms. Jones is going to kick us into our day. So our aims this year, helping every learner discover what is unique and special about them. That's the entire theme of Cultivating Butterflies. And I really do challenge you, as each kid walks through the door, before they leave your door in May, see if you can find one thing that stands out, that is special, unique, beautiful about them, and help them see that in themselves. Even if you just do that for a handful, my aim would be all, but if you could walk out at the end of the year and count at least on one hand the number of kids that you've really helped them discover what they're really good at, I think that could be life-changing. And so that's my challenge to you. You've heard at your campus retreats, and we'll hear it throughout the year. From that, really working to connect learning to interest and understanding what that looks like for our kids. That's reflecting on a little bit of that local accountability data that we have, where we ask kids, like, is learning connected to your interests? How do we do that in a way where they feel that to be their experience? Cultivating kindness among our students. Improving academic performance is always an aim. Today you're going to talk about small moves, big gains, just little habits that we can have that help enrich our thinking. And then we do have our learning portfolio coming out this year, and so that'll be a tool that comes to us around October-ish, and one of the things we hope we're successful once we have access to it. So those are kind of our big focuses for the year, really that top one being the top one, and then some other things that come along with that. So that's our year. I'm excited. If you need anything along the way, we're always here to lead, guide, support. Same as Mr. G said, always seeking feedback. If something's not working, let us know. If we need something, let us know. We can't always say yes, but we try to do what we can to get you what you need and where we need to be. I think it's going to be a great year, and thank you again for wearing your red. Y'all look super sharp. All right, Ms. Jones.